Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for the More Survivalists, and this is going to be 5 tips to keep in mind so as to be ready for a nuclear exchange. Now, before I go on with the video, if you're watching this, I completely understand what is your concern. I want to say though, from a practical preparedness perspective, which is what I do here on my channel, what I share with you in my books. 3 survival skills, surviving the economic collapse. This is a lot more likely to affect your life as of right now. And bugging out and relocating. This is probably my book that you want to check out if you're worried about this thing, because your location will dictate a lot of how this is likely to happen or affect you or not. But besides all of this, your priorities should probably be elsewhere. If you're worried about a nuclear exchange, which I understand you are, that's why I'm doing the video, you have still a laundry list of other things that you definitely should be taking care of before worrying about this at all, in terms of being healthy, having a good quality of life, being good with your family, your friends, your state of mind in many cases, and of course fitness and your financial well-being. So all of these things are far more important than being ready for the end of the world with a nuclear exchange between different countries. Okay, so let's get to this right now. The first thing to say is, don't worry too much. We've never been closer to a potential third world war like we are right now. Having said that, still there is a good chance that cooler heads will prevail and we will go on. And even if that's not the case, where you are specifically will dictate really how likely you are to be affected by this at all. There's a very good chance that if you cannot beat Ukraine in a decisive manner, you have no business fighting the entire NATO. All right, that goes without saying, even though we get into that political terrain that I don't want to get in this video specifically. The chances of that even crossing your mind, if you cannot win in a very clean, fast manner against a country like that, well, that goes without saying. So even if that ends up happening and it is within more of your proximity, there are several things you can do, not only to be prepared, but to actually survive it. There's people that are alive today that have survived attacks with nuclear bombs. Back when the United States bombed Nagasaki and Hiroshima, there's people that have survived with awful burns or not or less, or different wounds because of that, but there's people that have survived. This means that you can survive, okay? So number 2, and this is where we talk about some of the more complex aspects of preparedness, is where is it that you actually are? Now, I've talked many times in my videos, and this book is specifically written for that, strategic relocation. Where is it that you are? Now, if you're only moving around the world just to be safe in case of a third world war, I think you're not doing it in a clever manner, because there's so many other things that should be on top of your list in terms of far more likely to affect your quality of life or your chances of survival. It just doesn't make sense to plan on that alone. Having said that, it is yet one more thing you keep in mind. What it comes down to is, where is it that you are? Some countries are less likely to get involved in nuclear exchange. There's countries that are more apart from those areas, and there's specific locations within countries that are less likely to be hit or be affected. You want to avoid basically large cities, like the largest cities and the capitals of the countries. That's one of the first things you want to avoid, and you want to avoid good military targets that may be selected for this kind of tactical deployment of nuclear weapons. So being away from the biggest city, not just any big city, but usually you're looking at the biggest cities, maybe some of the capitals and some of the largest cities, and any potential military target. If you're away from those, you're already doing a lot just to survive even an exchange like that, okay? And we quickly go to number 3, which is your cell phone. Your cell phone will be the first thing that's going to be alerting you of imminent blast. It has happened before. I think it was in Hawaii that it was accidentally triggered and everyone got notice of that. So number 3, keep your phone charged and be aware of the latest news. If you have some app that's going to be alerting you, even better, and we'll talk about more later regarding some of those those apps that you may want to download. But your cell phone, number 3, keep it charged and stay on top of ongoing events around the world and in your vicinity. Number 4 would be having proper reaction to the initial blast. If you happen to be close to one of these potential targets, you still have a pretty good chance of surviving if you're not immediately vaporized by doing the basics of any explosion. Take cover, keep your head down. Of course, don't look directly at the blast. Stay away from windows. A lot of people end up dying because of debris, fire, all of these things. The best you can do is avoid it as much as you can. And if you manage to survive that initial blast, you have a good chance of surviving later on. But the first reaction you have, along with the planning in terms of where you happen to be because of all of these decisions that you made way ahead of time, that's going to be a strong part of this equation. Number 5 would be the gear you have, the supplies you have in terms of everything from gas masks to iodine tablets and even having a bunker. So if you have a bunker, that is great. Now, there's a good chance that the bunker will not play nearly as big of a part as you think in terms of surviving. If you have the opportunity to leave the area before you have to hunker down in a bunker, that's always even better. If you survive the initial blast, or if you don't survive the initial blast, the bunker will do you no good. Now, if you do have one, keep it in mind that you want to have it stocked with supplies so as to survive at least for 2 weeks. The first 48 hours are crucial. Ideally, you want to hunker down for 2 weeks before you're exposed to the exterior if there's a nuclear explosion on the outside. And then, of course, you have the gear that sometimes we talk about. Of course, the gas mask. This is crucial. Something that has a full face cover. Now, in terms of how is it that this works, it basically filters the particles. It's not some magical wave. The fallout is those radioactive particles that are thrown into the atmosphere because of the explosion. So as long as you filter those particles, you're good. You want a mask that it's a high efficiency particle filter, FFP3 or superior, and you want something that covers, of course, your entire face and is properly selected for your face shape. Usually they come in small, medium, and large, and you want to make sure that you have a good seal. Now, a mask like this, yes, this would be ideal. This is a proper, military grade nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare mask. Now, you have commercial ones that are pretty much working in the same way and a lot cheaper, depending on the price, but basically you're looking at filtering the particles that are in the air and avoid the inhaling of those. In terms of tablets, these are getting a little bit difficult to find. These, you take one of these a day, and half of it, depending on the size and age of the person, you're basically saturating. Anyway, this is not, as in video games, you're not good just by taking one of these, but you're saturating your prostate, so it's less likely to absorb some of this radiation into your body. So even though it's not perfect, it is definitely something you want to have if you happen to find yourself in that position. Be very careful with some of the commercial stuff that's floating around that is like, medical herbs and stuff like that. It's a lot less concentration. You would have to eat the entire bottle of some of the stuff I've seen online so as to have the amount that you need, that you get from even one of these tablets. So make sure you have at least, and here is the doses, I think it's 130, there you go, 130 milligrams, all right? So it's 130 milligrams per tablet. That's what you want to have. And then in terms of protecting the rest of your body, you want to have a suit, ideally an NBC suit, but basically any suit that is rated so as to filter particles and radiation particles. That's what you're looking for. But you can even improvise this with rain gear. If you have something that's waterproof and it's sealed properly, and this is a good segue to having tape. So the suit, boots, gloves, and tape, this is completing your equipment if you have to expose yourself to this fallout after the explosion. Now, you don't want to stay there. You want to have this just to get yourself out of there once you're exposed. You're not going to be living for weeks and months like in a video game. It just simply doesn't work that way. But you want to protect yourself as much as you can from that radiation and those particles that are pushed into the atmosphere by the explosion. So tablets, mask, duct tape. This may also be important to hunker down and shelter in place, so as to seal windows with plastic tarp and tape. I buy a ton of duct tape. Make sure you have quality stuff. I usually go with 3M, which is pretty good, but some of the cheap stuff may work okay or not. Better stock up on these when you find them on sale. All right. And this also, of course, goes along with a certain plan and strategy. Where is it that you are right now? Where is it that you're going if there happens to be an attack? So now that we talked a little bit about gear, let's talk about something that's maybe as important or maybe even more so, which is wind. For that, I'm going to be using this app. As you see, it's called windy.app. It's actually quite good. It's very interesting. And it's important to understand where wind is going. This is all live, so if we get close here to Florida, we see that you have the wind represented by these little arrows, and it's quite clear to see the direction of the wind. Not only that, the length of each of these vectors, each of these little arrows, is proportional to the speed as well. So it's very graphic to understand where wind is going and how fast it is. So one of the strategies I would recommend is pretty simple. Which region are you in? Where is your location? Where do you live? Okay, which are the potential targets of a nuclear exchange? You're going to be looking at some of the largest population centers. Of course, those tend to be quite high valued targets, and of course military bases. So if you have either one of those two, you have a large population center, especially if you have a military base or an important military asset nearby, those could be potential targets. So check in this app with certain frequency, where am I in relation to where the wind is from that potential target, how fast wind usually moves from there. So that's going to be giving you, of course, an average idea of your options. And of course, if you have this in your phone and you hear about an exchange, you can check this right away and plan your next move. Now, one of the things I've been doing lately, given everything going on, is checking how is the wind going in Ukraine. And it's quite interesting to notice that wind usually blows from west to east, northeast, or even directly north at times. So if you check this out, you realize that a nuclear exchange here would have serious implications, mostly for Russia, because wind goes either, the other day was going directly here, so an explosion in Kiev, fallout would have landed in Volog. Again, wind speed and distance, within 24 hours, it would have hit a city of over 1 million people in Russia. And just a couple days ago, wind was going directly to Moscow from Kiev. So I bet that's something that you keep in mind before pushing any button. But this app is actually quite useful, not only for this, but volcanic eruptions, fires, ash. These are all things that I personally experienced in the past, and now I understand how important it is to see the direction of the potential plume where ash, wind is going, and these potential particles with radioactive particles end up landing. Folks, it's gonna be all for now. Subscribe to the channel. You have my books available in the links below. See you next time. Take care.